Hi everyone, welcome back to the First Impact channel. This is David, and today we're going to be discussing Dragon Ball Super episodes 51 and 52. The reason that I had decided to cover both of these in one episode is that I found them to be rather kind of plain. There wasn't a whole lot to discuss about them, so I just wanted to go ahead and combine them two for the interim time in which we don't have an episode. So let's go ahead and just jump right into this. And by the way, before we do that, actually, today you guys are going to be watching me play some footage from Dragonball Z Super Butouden 3. This is another Super Famicom classic. It is a great game and basically kind of filled in on a lot of the problems from the two previous ones in the series. It's a lot of fun. Go out there and play it, buy it, enjoy it. But without further ado, let's talk about this episode. As I said before, these episodes are kind of boring to me, and they're mostly just full of expository information, but the information is rather crucial to where the story is going. It just seems to me that they could have made these two episodes a little more entertaining until we get the episode that is coming out soon. So, yeah. Bulma and Trunks, basically, are shown in the last episode at the end. And in this episode, we see them discussing the time machine that Bulma conveniently found, the one that Cell had escaped from. Now, they discuss the time machine and basically kind of fill in how that, Bulma had to still have this thing. So they had to come up with an idea, and this is where the story writers are going to go ahead and get some credit from me. They actually had the mind to pay attention to the history of the show, which, is kind of paramount, but some people seem to think otherwise at times. Now, it's really nice that we see these two discussing it, and they actually give us a brand new animated scene between her and him discussing the time capsule in general. In Z, we see him turn into a regular capsule again and just kind of pocket it and, be done with it. But in this, they animate it, and there's a conversation between the two of them, and they are discussing, basically, she's kind of guilting him and saying, well, I did make it, and you only need to have one, right? So he is reluctant, seeming, at least in the face, and I don't know if that's some kind of clever foreshadowing or not. But it would be rather interesting if it were. So she gives it away, or she ends up getting it, and that's kind of the end of the scene. But it was cool to see that and its new, footage instead of spliced Kai footage. So yeah, we see Dr. Brief and Mrs. Brief walk in, and we have not seen these two characters in quite some time, it seems, at least in some sort of meaningful way. And Bulma actually ends up talking to Dr. Brief and saying, hey, I need help. Here's this manual that I had found that's written by me in the future about the time machine. And he decides that, yeah, he's going to help. And we see Mrs. Brief, and she sees Trunks, and in typical Mrs. Brief fashion, she's very excited, very much glowing, smiling, and it's kind of fun. It's a good refresher to her character again, even for those who aren't really familiar with the series as much and are just now giving Dragon Ball a try. You kind of actually get a whole bunch of her character summed up in about, 10 seconds of interaction, and it's really good because she's not a major character, but she has some meat to her every now and then. She's just a fun comedy relief thing. So we do have the dreaded creepy Mai scene, and I know that you guys have all heard about this, and if you haven't, well, this episode is basically talking about, well, the title itself, I believe, is Trunks' feelings transcend time. Or my feelings, I can't exactly remember. But yeah, it's creepy. We see future Trunks go up to her as, she is in her little kid form, and says he's reluctant, but he's like, oh, he hears her name, and he approaches her, and he holds her hand, and she starts blushing, and it's really awkward, and little tiny chibi Trunks, who is not happy. He's very upset by this, and yeah, he just looks kind of distraught, but he then goes on to go into more exposition about the whole way that Mai had died and basically everything that she did to help him. And I like to call this Mai's silly revolution. I think it's just kind of, it doesn't make any sense to me. And it almost seems like the show is at times made for people who have not seen Dragon Ball or are not familiar with the lore, because Mai has been fighting Goku for, 40 years now, or, 30-something years. And now she's a kid again and all this other jazz, but she knows who Goku is. I mean, they all know. The whole Pilaf gang does. So why is it that Mai thinks that this little gang of dudes with machine guns and shit are going to actually stop this guy when they couldn't stop little Goku when he's a kid? I mean, Goku's taken bullets to the head as a child and survived. So I don't know where the thinking is on this one, and I know that a lot of people are going to say, well, yeah, but the main trick was that they were going to drop a building on him. Yet again, do they really think that's going to happen? I mean, she has to know what's going on, and it's just getting silly. And this also brings me to another point. They are starting to refer to the Pilaf gang as the freeloaders, and yet Bulma is still having, well, actually not even just Bulma, everyone is having this hard time knowing that it's them. They have the same names, they look exactly the same, but they're just kids. So, and it's not like the Dragon Ball world isn't weird as hell, so why is everybody just suddenly like, oh, these guys are cool to hang out, even though they've tried to kill us, I don't know, a billion times, and they still have aspirations of taking over the world, but whatever. To move on from my gripe, my petty gripe, as some would maybe even say, Trunks and Bulma have a conversation about how long it takes to produce this, what I like to aptly call the time juice, because, what is the other name for it? And she brings up that it will take her 1 day, and Trunks is surprised and is like, wow, this took my mother, 1 year to make half of this time juice. And it's just like stunning to him. And she kind of talks about how, well, it's understandable given your limited production means and your supplies. And, Trunks is completely in awe and realizes that it's only going to take 1 day to do this. So that's pretty exciting. And, it fills him with hope because he's been pretty down this whole time. We see Vegeta have this like tantrum during the episode in which he's kind of having an inner monologue or a soliloquy, if you will, and he's basically talking about how bitter he is that the future has been screwed by Black, and he's just pissed because his wife is dead and his son's been tormented for however long it's been. So he kind of throws a fit and storms off and goes into the gravity room. Now, I really do like this part of the episode, which, I find most of this episode to be boring. This is one of the cool scenes. We see him training as we always have before, but we get to see him in this updated, this format that we currently have with Dragon Ball Super, and it's really nice to see him kind of having a Vegeta moment where he's kind of pissed and he's just throwing stuff around, and he suddenly gets the best of him, and he kind of powers up and loses it, and Goku feels it from like a distance and is like, well, Vegeta's still pretty angry. And he is, obviously, and it's kind of funny, and they're still kind of trying to counterbalance the comedy. Now, I will say that this episode and the next episode that I'll be discussing later in this, they aren't, if you're going to go lighthearted and kind of expository, I would really like for you to keep up with the comedy aspect, and I feel like they haven't really done that. And now, for the other episodes that have been like this, they have done a great job, in my opinion, of withholding the comedy. This one really feels kind of rushed, and like they just really had to get this expository stuff out and not really provide a lot of fun in the background. It seems like it was just a stepping stone to kind of get to Black, and really that's kind of what a lot of the stuff has felt like outside of the tournament stuff. Now, Beerus and Whis are seen discussing the familiarity of Black's ki, and that is very interesting to me because that would most likely mean that he is, someone of godhood or someone affiliated with the Kaios, and maybe even a Makaioshin. We've never really seen how much interaction that people like Beerus and Whis would have, or even the Omni King with those kinds of people. So that could be very interesting if they parlay this situation into that. Now, we see Whis using his staff to actually review the fight of Goku and Black. And that's pretty interesting in and of itself because it's just another power that we see of Whis's, and it's pretty cool, actually, and I'm still starting to I'm not even starting, I still lean on the side that he's bigger than what Beerus is. And I don't even know if Beerus really knows. And I'd really like to know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know, what do you guys think that is the real relationship between Beerus and Whis? How much stronger is Whis than Beerus? And where do you think his place is in the hierarchy of the gods for sure? And I honestly wonder, is the Xeno King or the Omni King maybe a red herring himself? Who knows? Is Whis really the main guy? I don't know. I'd like to think that, but we'll never know until we get there. Now, the Pilaf gang, as I had mentioned earlier, are being called the freeloaders, but they're being put to work by Bulma because apparently she's feeding them, and I'm assuming they live there now, which is even weirder and very discomforting, although these guys are the main core of a lot of the comedy in these downtime episodes, and they do not disappoint, as they have always been great in the entire meta series. I've always really loved the Pilaf gang, and it's great to see them moving around, but we do get somewhat of an important interaction, and it's probably some foreshadowing from my Bulma asks Mai to pick up a part while she's repairing the time machine, and Little Trunks offers to take her to where the part would be. Now, Little Trunks is obviously showing more of his affection for her and how much he enjoys her, and he's very eager to be with her alone, obviously. Surprise. And they travel over to this room and over to the building in which that they have the part, and Trunks is, vigorously looking for this piece, trying to help Mai find it to, somehow, I guess in his mind, score him some extra bounty points. And Mai's basically not having it. She's very much infatuated with future Trunks after the little hand-holding interaction that they had, and she's even seen making a comment in this kind of time frame in which Bulma actually really quickly responds, and Mai says that, ooh, that handsome frowning boy, referring to future Trunks, is very handsome, and Bulma exclaims, well, that sounds like something that a woman would say, as if Bulma's even catching on, which, if she's a freaking genius, and yet she still doesn't know who these people are. But Mai does get angry when Little Trunks is being overzealous trying to help her find the part, and basically gets frustrated and says, hey, if you don't know what you're looking for, then just get it out of my way. And Little Trunks is kind of burned by this, and we see him walk over to the other corner of the room with a saw in his hand, like a big jigsaw that has a string on it. He puts it on as if it's like the sword that Trunks has, and is kind of seen posing and almost maybe, daydreaming, hoping, wishing that he'll become that version of himself. I know that's super meta, right? But it's kind of silly, and he kind of tries to get Mai's attention, and she just kind of shrugs him off and walks back, and he's kind of bummed about it, screaming, whatever, and it's pretty funny. Not too great of a scene, but kind of fun, and it's a nice little homage to the future Trunks character. And we're gonna just basically skip over to episode 52 now, because that episode is pretty much it for that one. There's not a whole lot of crazy stuff for it. My ending thoughts on it are that, yeah, they kind of try to play the comedy angle, and it didn't really work with that, in my opinion. But a lot of the other stuff that is happening story building wise and information dropping, the information we are getting is pretty cool. It's great that they're actually incorporating Cell, and that's really exciting. Now 52 is basically still part of this story, and it almost feels like it's the same episode in terms of its pacing and its quality. And we still see Bulma at the beginning of this one, still fast at work at the time machine. Mai is still ignoring Tiny Trunks, and that's still, I guess, kind of funny. And we see a lot of jealousy from him basically coming from a lot of this. And after all this stuff where they're basically just fighting and blah, 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 and we see Whis reviewing it, we see a little bit of what I like to refer to as PTSD Trunks in this episode, and I think it's kind of funny, and I know, that's kind of terrible, but it's kind of funny. And we see Trunks have this whole flashback in which he sees Mai and all that other crap, and, she dies, da-da-da-da-da. And it's kind of getting annoying and pretty obvious that they're desperate for stuff to put out. I don't know if because the writing is still, like, heavily ongoing, or if they're not sure of the general direction, or maybe they're even just waiting for the manga. I'm not really sure. But we keep getting a lot of these reanimated scenes spliced in from Kai and Z, and then we get reanimated things from other movies, OVAs, and other parts of Z, which is, it's kind of a jigsaw puzzle in terms of quality and kind of annoying, but I think that maybe this trend will die down more, and I think we're going to see this as it's like a rotating kind of a cycle of quality, where we'll see a lot of this reincorporation because they don't know what to do. But when we start seeing more things, for instance, like the Hit versus Goku fight, that's going to be pretty much entirely all new animation, and that is something to look forward to. Now, after we see Trunks wake up from his PTSD moment, as I like to call it, he swings a sword, and this is just another one of those scenes in which we can point to Trunks finding comfort in this sword. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, what I theorize on that at the end of this recap. But we've been seeing a lot of scenes where Trunks has the sword and talks about how it makes him feel safe, comfortable. He uses it in battle constantly, even now at his current strength. So maybe a bit of foreshadowing there. Now we see a reanimated scene in which future Gohan is, the Gohan without one arm and the Yamcha scar, and he obviously looks super cool. They reanimate the scene, and I really did appreciate that. It's unfortunate that they're relying yet again on past information and past things, but it's awesome because that's a great movie in my opinion. It's really fun, and at least for the fan in me, I've always enjoyed it. And it's really neat to see that version of Gohan because we're clearly never going to get that back. Um, Now, they did cut a lot from that, and it's kind of reminding me of the scene from a couple of weeks ago in which Deborah fights Trunks, and it's just kind of so-so in its animation in terms of action. They actually don't show any action in this one, though, and it just shows Gohan chop Trunks like the movie, and he falls down, and he goes to fight the androids, and then Trunks wakes up, and Gohan is dead, and it's super sad as always. But that's really about the extent of the scene, but it is redone, and it's not super jarring looking, so that is good. Now, there's just the whole redundancy of that situation in itself is kind of painful, but whatever. Very cool looking. Now we see Krillin and Piccolo being told by Bulma to clean up everything as usual, and we just know that they're officially relegated as to props, and that they're probably only still being shown because of their immense popularity. It breaks my heart to see them not being useful in any way, although it was cool to see Piccolo in the tournament saga. Hopefully we get some more role from him like that, or we see some maybe buddy stuff with him and Krillin, because I don't know, I think that's kind of fun. They're fun, and they've worked really well together recently in the episodes, and it's made me kind of smile and enjoy it. Now, Trunks obviously talks to Piccolo and Krillin, and he asks about where Gohan is and what's going on with Gohan, how he's doing. And Piccolo, so basically, without even being asked, says, well, if you're thinking about taking him into the future, he's not the same man that you knew. And it's, he's a scholar now and a family man. And, Trunks is kind of taken back by that, and he's excited because, he proclaims that's his dream. Although, if I remember Dragon Ball Z, he wasn't really dreaming about that. He actually wanted his mom to shut the hell up so he could go fight and save the world. And we see that with Goten recently too, so whatever. But apparently that's his goal in the future or whatever, but it is what it is now. So he goes to visit them under the pretense of, Piccolo saying not to do that, in terms of trying to, lure him into the future. And they meet at this place where Piccolo says that he's giving a conference. Now, Gohan sees him and is taken back and like, whoa, what is he doing here? And he basically has ice cream with him, which is super silly to see these hardened warriors. And yeah, I know Gohan's soft now or whatever, but it's just really funny to see them doing really ordinary stuff like getting ice cream. And it's really going out of its way to show how soft Gohan is, and he almost feels like little kid Goku again. It's weird, but it's kind of cool. It's cool that at least they're building him up and making sense of this whole character change for him. And we haven't been really filled in on much with that, and he's not been too fleshed out. They've only been like, we don't do anything anymore, blah blah blah, and that's kind of a bad explanation. But this episode at least serves to kind of give us an understanding of his family life and his current life situation. Now he visits them for dinner because Gohan suggests that they go there. After they talk, and Trunks is basically being super emotional and feeling sad this whole time, is kind of breaking him up a little bit. But I think he's very happy to see Gohan in this situation. Now, they go back to the house, and he is, of course, accosted by Hercule, a.k.a. Mr. Satan, and they're talking, and he's being annoying, but they go in and have some family time, and Gohan tells him that, he just needs a little more time to finish up the papers from his conference, and he'll be out, and he asks Trunks to, take care of watching Pan for a moment. And Pan starts grabbing onto his hair and pulling him, and then punches the shit out of him. And she's already seen flying around and stuff. So they're really trying to emphasize her power and her capability and her potential. So now that we know that she's still quite strong, and it's a kind of a comedic moment, it's pretty funny. And Gohan comes out and calms her down, and there's a moment in which Gohan even puts on the Great Saiyan Man costume, which leads me to wonder if he's still going out and fighting crime in any way, shape, or form, and maybe a bit of a hint there as well. And he chases her around in obviously a very comedic and cute way. He's just chasing his daughter, trying to reprimand her, but still having fun with it. But that all passes, and they eat dinner. And Trunks is about to leave, and he's thanking them for dinner, and he kind of is reaffirmed in his resolve, and basically says, this is what I'm fighting for, and he's got to get back to the future and do this. Well, he's about to take off, and he's leaving, and Gohan and Videl are speaking, and she wants to know, well, why did he even come here in the first place? And Gohan is like, and this kind of shows that where Gohan's mind is. He's not thinking about the extraordinary world of Dragon Ball anymore. He just doesn't even remember to ask him. And that's kind of where they cut off with their interaction. Trunks finally returns to Capsule Corporation wearing new clothes, looking kind of cleaned up, and asking everybody how they are, and they're all noticing that he feels better and that he's smiling, and everyone is kind of happy. And he then looks over and goes, "Where's Goku, Beerus, and Whis?" And and he's shocked, and they all tell him that they've all gone to Universe 10 because they have some sort of lead on Key's or Black's key energy. So they do that, and it cuts away to them floating through this time stream or this galaxy stream with Whis at the beginning and Beerus and Goku clinging on. And it's obviously pretty comedic. And they end up going to the Kaioshin world of Universe 10. And we see the character Zamasu, who looks like a green version of the Supreme Kai, walking around with a cart of tea. And that's where the episode ends. And it makes me wonder, because we see stuff in the preview of Goku and him fighting, and this guy is rumored on the internet to be an exceptional fighter, and what we see through this preview is very interesting because he's going toe-to-toe with the Super Saiyan Goku, which further leads me to believe that he is still Black Goku, and that is part of the theory section, guys. I think he is Black Goku, unless they're smart enough to throw in a red herring. It definitely seems like that's where they're going, or at least he's connected to Black Goku, and maybe the reason that Black Goku has the Ring of Time and other things. Now, another set of theories that we're going to get into before I end this episode for you guys is that does Trunks have the Z Sword, or will he get it? I'm hoping that he will. He may already, as I said before. We're seeing a lot of different scenes in which he's referenced the sword, using the sword often, and people are even telling him that, he doesn't need it anymore. And he's like, well, I'm comfortable with this. This is what it is. And I think that maybe they're placing importance on it for some kind of future thing. I don't know. I would like for him to get the Z Sword, or at least maybe a new weapon or a transformation. Will we see Trunks getting Super Saiyan Blue? Highly doubtful. I do, however, feel that Trunks may get Super Saiyan God. And I think this is the most likely thing. He doesn't have to necessarily achieve it on his own, and it should be enough power for him to basically deal with anyone in his future timeline, and would probably be the only effective way for them to actually be done with Trunks and us not have to worry about him if they so choose to do so. Now, the Kai planet is interesting to me because we know the story of the Z Sword, and we know that old Kai comes out of the broken Z Sword. And that's very interesting to me, at least, and very indicative of what could happen, simply because we know that he was inside of it. And he talks about a lot of the origins of the Z Sword and the Kais. When he discusses the origin of the Kais, he says that Majin Buu is the person who killed everyone in the Kai realm, and everyone's alive in this Universe 10 Kai realm. So I have to wonder if Buu hasn't come yet. And, well, obviously Buu never came in that universe that Trunks is from. So these guys are all still alive, and that's very interesting to me. If they're not dead, then maybe the Z Sword still exists, or maybe the old Kai in that universe exists, and he could maybe unlock Trunks' potential. There's a lot of different things coming up, and we are also seeing a rumor from a lot of different places on the internet about Goku Black having a transformation and it being a pink Super Saiyan. I think seeing a pink Super Saiyan would be very cool, actually. It's a color we don't ever really see in the show other than with Majin Buu and a couple of other characters, but never really like as a transformation. So I think that would be very unique, although if Akira Toriyama is to be believed, with a grain of salt as always, guys, he said that he was hoping for a white character, and that's what I'm assuming is going to happen, and that what people are seeing in the media is a misrepresentation of the character. We will be finding this out very soon, and a lot of these other things, but I'm very curious to know what you guys think about this whole situation, and what you think about these rumors and the episodes at hand, guys. Let me know what I can do to improve the show. Follow me on Twitter. The link is in the description. And just let me know how you guys feel about the show and what I can do to improve this show. Come back next week when we will have the next episode up, and it will just be a single episode again this time. Enjoy more game coverage. Again, what you guys were watching today was Super Butouden 3 for the Super Famicom. And yes, follow me on social media, give me likes and comments, and tune in next time to the First Impact channel.